realize that we all are full of it. Yes, we all are full of it. We all have our own stories, our own magic, our own packet of our values, virtues, and our qualities. Yes, to realize each and everything and to know what we are full of. Our guest speaker, along with our musician, Brother David. This session, I welcome all of you in this beautiful occasion of the fullness. I, Dr. Monica Khatri, all the way from Jabalpur, Associate Professor from Hitkani Dental College and Hospital. Welcome all of you on behalf of entire Hitkani Dental College and Hospital, Hitkani Sabha, Jabalpur Hospital, Indian Dental Association, Jabalpur Branch, Indian Medical Association, Jabalpur Branch, Medical Wing, Mount Abu and Jabalpur Branch, Security Wing, Mount Abu and Jabalpur Branch, on this beautiful occasion. Please accept these virtual flowers, Brother Dan and Brother David.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome Dr. Vidhan Sarkar to kindly officially introduce this session. Thank you so much.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Heartiest good morning to everyone. It cannot be expressed in words how grateful I am today that I have been given a chance to take part in live session with BK Dan Havard, sir. So today's topic is "You are full of it." Each one of us is so full of our own story that we overlay that story across reality. It's as if each one of us is a data projector, constantly projecting our story out across the world. We look at our brain, we look out across the world that we look at. Our brain and subconscious mind are especially wired to do this. But through meditation, we start to have a spiritual insight because we start to realize that most people, that is including ourselves, are caught behind a wheel of meaning they themselves are projecting. So today we have with us Sir Dan Havard, who was a practicing lawyer and is now volunteering full-time at Brahmakumaris Center in Five Talk. He has been teaching people about practical benefits of using Raj Yoga meditation in daily life for the last 19 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, brother, and Monica Ben. I appreciate that. Please do let me know if there's any technical things that need to be attended to as we go along. If my speech, my talking is too fast or there's an issue with volume or anything, please do let me know. I had a bit of a laugh to myself during the introduction, you know, because the topic is actually a bit mischievous or naughty. You know, it's a colloquial expression in English. Maybe if people watch TV or movies, they would hear someone say to someone else, "Oh man, you're so full of it." If someone says that to you, it's usually just a little bit of a rough comment, you know, like it's not a compliment. So it was sort of a bit funny when Monica Ben was saying that you're all full of it. It's, I guess you'd say it's like a mild insult, but the purpose of having a topic that's slightly insulting is to get people's attention, you know, that we don't normally think of ourselves as being full of it in this way. And it generally sort of refers to like rubbish or junk or garbage, like, you're full of rubbish, you're full of it. And just in a sort of a common way that people might say it in society. But it has a lot of depth from a meditation perspective and from the perspective of understanding consciousness. In what way, as the nice brother introducing me mentioned, that like we're a data projector, and what we carry inside, we overlay that or superimpose our outlook on the world around us. But we do it in a subconscious way. We are not intentionally doing it usually. We're not usually consciously doing it. And often a lot of the problems, tensions, stresses that we have in life are because we're not aware of the fact that we're doing it. We tend to think that the way I see the world is the way it is. And actually, by really challenging ourselves on that understanding, we can get some interesting insight for ourselves. So it's definitely my hope with today's topic and the question and answers after the talk that people listening will get some insight, find it interesting, reflect on it for themselves, and think about how it applies in their life, and how you can use this way of looking at things to unpack or resolve problems or challenges you're facing. Really, I hope that it's beneficial in that way, that people get something out of it. It's certainly been that in my life. So I've also got this PowerPoint, which I'll roll through as I talk. And so just as a practical thing, I was hoping those who are watching, whether on Zoom or on YouTube, could close their eyes for this activity. And it's just to show how basic this is, that I want you to visualize that you're going out for dinner somewhere. You can choose where in your mind and who you're going out with. And it's just a 30-second exercise that imagine that you're going out with friends or somewhere. You've chosen the location. You're going into that place. And wherever it is, that's the place you are, and you're there with your friends. There's a group of you. There's food around. Whatever scenario you've created, that's it. You've created that in your mind. And then you can open your eyes. The activity is over. And then were any of you sitting on the floor for your food, or were you sitting around a table, or were you standing up and eating? Because the assumption that you make is part of what you're full of, right? Based on your cultural context, based on the way you were brought up, where you were brought up, what country you were brought up in, you may have imagined or visualized a particular scene. But that scene also tells something about you and your own life experience. In the same way, if you do another visualization, you can do it just where you imagine yourself going shopping. And I'm also sometimes a carer for someone who's in a wheelchair, and it made me realize that actually when you're with someone who uses a wheelchair full time, you have to rethink everything you do and everywhere you go, because all of a sudden the default thinking had been that wherever I would go, I would imagine myself in those spaces and how I would get from A to B, and that would be fine for me. But when I'm with someone who's in a wheelchair, they have to think completely differently about their environment. Even if there's just a small edge like this, it means it's very hard for them to get into a shop, right? Or get into some other place. Are there lifts available? Is there a disabled toilet that they can use? So naturally, I put forward or push out into my life a version of myself based on me. And so these are just two examples of how we can take that for granted and not realize actually that it's all just coming from me and going out. And it gets a lot more interesting as we go through the talk. These are just very basic examples, But once you start to think about your social environment, the way you communicate with your friends, the way you have a disagreement with people, the way you come into conflict with people, it's all coming from the same thing. You're holding something inside, which is your assumptions about life, your story, and then it collides or crashes into someone else's story. And the main challenge is the fact that we hold on to thinking that the way I was visualizing it or seeing it was right, was the only way, is the best way. That's when the challenges that I'm facing become unsolvable, stuck, intractable, because it's just not true. Actually, we're in the same position as the other person that we may be having a challenge with. We're both just pushing out our own version of reality, and it's actually our version. It's not reality in itself. Just another simple example is my own personal experience of being pushed into public speaking. You know, I was always so uncomfortable to talk in front of a group of people, and just through university and through my involvement with the Brahmakumaris, I've had opportunities to challenge that, and people who really supported me and encouraged me. But honestly, I think the main challenge or block that I had was that I was very critical as a person. And so when I sort of pushed out my version of myself into an audience, I tended to think that people would be criticizing me, finding fault, having problems. So it was connected to my story. And so naturally, how would I feel comfortable to speak in front of everyone if I thought they were all thinking bad things about me? But actually, most people aren't, just I was. And really the knowledge that I'm learning from the Brahmakumaris has helped me so much with that, because I've been able to just change my thinking to think good things about people and then feel more at ease about, you know, this sort of public environment or forum. So the alternative topic for this talk, which isn't quite as exciting or punchy as telling people they're full of it, is just projection. So if you Google projection, if you want more information about this topic, the common way of expressing it is projecting. And I don't know in India, but in Australia, people will commonly say to each other, especially if they're a bit sort of spiritually inclined, you know, that, oh, you're projecting onto me, you know, like you're not seeing me as I am, you're just projecting your own information onto me. So it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about. So here is just the quote that we used for the start of the talk. Each of us is so full of our own story that we overlay that story across reality, constantly projecting our story onto the world that we look at, and that our brain and our subconscious mind are wired to do this. It's part of our hard wiring, actually, to live in this way and to operate in this way. And, you know, you can think there's many benefits of doing this, right? If I couldn't learn information about my environment and then use it to navigate my environment, I would be a very ineffective human being. It's a part of being effective in life that we can do this, but it has its traps as well. There are aspects of it which make our lives difficult. So through meditation, we can start to get some kind of spiritual insight happening, because we realize that the more I, you know, shine my meaning out into the world, it is my meaning, and I shouldn't allow myself to get trapped or limited or confined just to my meaning. You know, there are many other people in the world, right? If I'm a profoundly selfish person, then I'll be absolutely boxed in and stuck in my meaning, and that will be the only thing that matters for me. But none of us really want to be that, and actually it, you know, it makes it hard to have human relationships if I'm too stuck in my own meaning. At some point we have to sort of reach out and communicate with other people and find shared meaning, and connect with their reality, not just stay caught in my own reality. And then it also raises a very interesting spiritual question, which is, what would be God's reality? If I was to have a relationship with a divine being or a deity or someone who has a different way of looking at life, what would their insight and outlook be? Because, we're just other humans is one thing, right? We're naturally just emptying out our story, but what about someone with very different perspectives? And insight isn't mandatory or guaranteed. Really, we need to be very sincere to challenge our own meaning, because also I find that, in my professional work, if people have a lot of emotional baggage, if they're very hurt, they can become very committed to their story, and it somehow becomes like a psychological protection for them, and they won't want to be challenged. So it's not necessarily the case that people will actually have insight about this, but certainly to have, I feel like, deep emotional connections to other people, intimate human relationships, we need to have insight. We need to reach out of our story and connect to others. So some examples. So, when I was 16 years old, I got my first car, and it was really a piece of junk, but I loved my piece of junk. It was a Ford Cortina, and this isn't the actual car. I've just grabbed this off the internet, but it is the right make, model, and year. And depending on your own cultural background, this will have less meaning for you. The example is still valid, but in Australia and New Zealand, this type of car will have its own meaning, in the same way that vehicles in India will have their own social meaning, because they tell something about a person. They communicate how much they're prepared to pay for it, maybe what their interests are, maybe what other people they hang out with. So the thing that this car communicated, like when I was 16, I didn't understand what this car communicated, but every time the police saw me, they would stop me. So in hindsight, I can understand that my car was definitely communicating something to people. It had a meaning, and people were acting based on that meaning. And they would always check to see if I was drunk, even though I was just 16. They would breath test me and check my license and then send me on my way. So that was my first car. And it's an example of something that had meaning, right? But if I'm not aware of the meaning that it has for other people, then I can just make a headache for myself. And I was certainly innocent, of that meaning. And a few other simple examples. Actually, I lived in Delhi for a while. And while I was there, I used to cycle to an office where I was doing a service project for the Brahmakumaris. And it was quite interesting for most of the people that saw me riding a bicycle through the streets of Delhi. It seemed to, for some people, it was quite funny and entertaining. Some people would just look and stare at me, but I could tell that I was in another scenario where there was a meaning for them that I didn't know what that meaning was, because I'm innocent in that I have no cultural experience there. I don't know what it means to ride a bike in India if it's done by certain people and not other people. But I certainly enjoyed riding my bicycle there. It's a bit stinky with the fumes, but that was the story that was there. And, the definition, I think, of culture shock is when the meaning that I'm carrying in my head no longer matches the world outside me, and probably for a prolonged period of time. Like we can be in a situation where our carried meaning, all the meaning we have inside, is no longer present around us. But if that goes on for ages, people often go into what's called culture shock. It's like what we carry inside just doesn't match at all our external environment. And after a while, people become distressed by that, because they can't find the food they're used to. They can't find things in the supermarket. They don't understand what's normal to do in terms of behavior and talking to people around them. And so they get a shock from that. And when I was in Delhi, there was a nice guy, his name was Anurag, and he shared a story with me that's another really nice example of how we have our own assumptions about meaning that we carry around. So Anurag was about 45 years old, and he lived with his mum in Delhi, and his mum and their dog. And he had worked in New York for about 15 years. And while he was in New York, a colleague of his had some dental problems and had to go back to stay with his parents and get his dental work done. And so Anurag was sharing that story with me, and he then said, and this is the sort of the key part. So he said, so it's not true that Western parents don't love their children. These parents looked after their kid with these dental problems, so they do love their children. And I was like, where did that come from? It means like, whoever said that Western parents don't love their children, right? But for him, he was clearly making a claim, right? That, yeah, no, of course Western parents don't love their children. It's like, who said that? And he's like, no, of course they don't. They make them move out of home when they're only like 17, 18. They just get rid of them. They don't like having children. It's like, no. Actually, the value of independence, like the thing that will make a Western mother or father proud, is that the kid, leaves home and stands on their own feet and doesn't require the support and assistance of their parents anymore. They feel like, great, the bird has left the nest. I've taught it to fly, and now you're free to go and look after yourself and have your own life. Whereas just to, reflect back on perhaps a Western perspective on how an Indian environment might seem, or a more community-based environment might seem, they will feel like the bird has always got like a thing around its throat, and if it flies too far, they pull it back into the nest because they don't want it to be free, right? And then they tell that bird that, when I'm old, you also have to take care of me, right? Because this, I only cared for you so that you would look after me in my old age. There's like an implied contract that you're kind of permanently in a debt there. And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. These are two different perspectives, right? And both of them are valid. They're based on their values, their cultural experience, what they think is appropriate. But I think they all love their children, right? And they just have different ways of doing things. But you can see how we carry the shared meaning inside. Like inside me, it's not that I don't love my parents, but they have zero expectation that I have to care for them in their old age. Nothing. And if I ring them every month or something, they're quite happy with that. Whereas I know some kids, they have to like ring their parents every day or every 2 days. And when I first heard that, I was like what? Because for me, it's different. But that's their experience and what's appropriate in their circumstances. And it doesn't mean that either of us is wrong. It's just that we're carrying a different meaning inside that was been instilled in us from a really early age. And then a third example to demonstrate this was, I lived in the retreat center that the Brahmakumaris operate in Melbourne for 10 years. And we would sometimes have guests come from India for doing service. And one sister came, Nikki, for a few months. And I remember when she went for lunch, when she had first arrived in Australia, maybe it was her second or third day. And one thing that they would commonly cook when I was there was roast vegetables. And for people in Australia, that's like a normal meal. They would just like roast up and steam up a bunch of vegetables, some potatoes, some carrots, some peas, some broccoli, and more vegetables. And that was it. That was the whole meal. And I remember she opened up each dish as she went down the bench where everything was set out, because we would cook for about 20 people. And then once she got to the end, she kept looking around the kitchen for the food, because I was there. So I was like, what are you looking for? She's like, I'm looking for lunch. I'm just like, that's the lunch there. She's like, no, that's not lunch. I'm like, yeah, that's lunch. No, that's not. For her, like, the food was missing, right? Because in her head, like, what would count as a meal, that didn't count. That wasn't food. That was just a bunch of cooked vegetables. Where's the rice? Where's the dal? Where's the, spicy curry and all of this? So even things like food are so deep in us that becomes part of our cultural meaning. So we mentioned this just a bit earlier. Culture shock. The story that I'm projecting is no longer resonating with my environment. I'm still blasting out my story because it's been filled in me from a very young age, maybe for 18 years, maybe for 25 years. I'm full of it. I'm stuffed full of my story, but it stops to resonate with my environment. My external environment has changed. And therefore, after a while, I get really uncomfortable because I don't even know what is meaningful anymore. Like, I've started to lose that meaning. So we're unable to confirm our reality for an extended period of time, and it starts to mess us up. And one of Daddy Janki's famous quotes, she would often tell us, especially the foreigners, she would say, just don't think. And I really feel that this is partly because so much of our mental activity is driven by this searching to confirm our own meaning, trying to justify my own story. It creates so much waste thought. And as I'm sure you all know, waste thoughts just drain our energy, bring us down. And so we have to come out from all of our wasteful thinking. And just to make it contemporary, the biggest producer of fake news in the world is each of you. All of you listening to this, myself included, right? We just generate so much fake news because we carry meaning inside of us and we think it's true. And therefore, when it doesn't match reality, we have to generate a story about that, justify it, explain it, rationalize it. We can't just let it go or separate from that story. So it leads to buckets of fake news. Now, a really nice Zen proverb, which I feel is very much illustrates this point, because this point isn't new in a sense. It's really been part of the exploration of human consciousness for many, many years and many, many millennia. The story is of someone who wanted to meet a wise Zen master. And he knew that that Zen master lived at the top of a mountain. So he was going up to meet that Zen master. And when he reached that Zen master, he had, questions in his mind that he wanted to ask him. I think in the story, the guy who went up was a professor or someone very academic. So, a very intelligent, learned person. And the Zen master, had met him and sort of was sussing him out. And before he would answer any of his questions, he said he would have to have a cup of tea. And in the story, the person is holding their cup, and the Zen master is pouring the tea for the person who has come to learn. And he's pouring and pouring, and the cup is getting fuller and fuller. And the person is wondering, what's he doing? It's getting too full. And then it starts to overflow, and the tea is coming into the saucer, the plate underneath. And the person, stop, what are you doing? You're going to spill the tea. And the Zen master stops and just looks very thoughtfully at the person who has come and tells him, this cup of tea is like you. You are too full to be able to receive a message from me. And the idea, I think, is very much connected to this, that if I'm too full of my own thinking, if there's no space in my brain, what am I going to be able to receive? Like, honestly, each of us could ask ourselves if God himself came to us and tried to explain something to us, could we actually understand? If there was that divinity or that profound sharing giving, would I be ready to receive it? Could I put aside my own story and actually start to understand something from someone else that's that deep? Because we really just have our story inside, and it actually doesn't allow us to receive something else. And so meditation, a big part of meditation is really going inside and understanding that I'm not all the stories that I carry inside. If I just hold on to them and fill myself with my own meaning in my own little teacup world, that's not truth or reality. I'm still full of it. And then applying this same logic to another common question that people ask. People often ask, what is the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? What's the purpose of it all? What's the meaning of life? But then applying the understanding that we've just talked about now to this question, what insights do we get? Think about the implications of projection. You can no longer ask this question, actually, because it projects a story where our external environment holds secret meaning that we're in search of. This disempowers us, and it's inconsistent with the evidence, as in the meaning isn't outside in the external environment. Actually, I'm still projecting that story that my outside world is meaningful. I'm the one who's giving my environment meaning. So how can I pretend that my environment is then the source of meaning coming back into me? It's not. I'm the one putting the meaning out there. So actually, life is an opportunity to create meaning. It's not that there's the meaning of life. It's the opportunity for me to create meaning and put it on that life. Otherwise, how could we have so many different cultural backgrounds that have so much meaning, but they're so different that they can clash with each other as well? Actually, the meaning must be coming from inside of us and being put out on the world. It's like in different cultures as well, how the concept of respect, people might, it can often easily be a source of disagreement where people feel that, hey, this person has done this, it's so disrespectful to do that. But they may have inside had zero intention to disrespect anyone. They were not coming from a place of disrespect at all. But the way that meaning was perceived by the other person based on their expectations, it was disrespect. I remember when I can't actually remember if it was to do with the Brahmakumaris or another Indian-based group that I was involved in, Anandamarga. But at some point in my journey, I went to something that was from an Indian cultural background, and I just stuck my feet out in front of me at the person who was talking, and someone came and said, you can't do that. That's disrespecting the person who's speaking to have your feet out. Your feet are facing them. I was like, I'm not disrespecting them. I'm just sitting on the floor, but for the person who was sharing with me, and according to their background, that's a disrespect, right? But actually inside, if I don't have that intention to disrespect someone, it's not doing that. And of course, I complied, I crossed my legs, but really it's not, we have to really look at people's intentions, not an external form of what respect is, because people may not know or be educated about what someone else thinks counts as respect. So life is an opportunity to create meaning, and it's a journey of letting go of meanings that were conditioned into us. So we have so much, meaning being put into us, and sometimes they're not even useful. Some of the meanings that people have given to us, maybe in our childhood, maybe from our parents, actually may be harmful to us. And so really part of our life journey is to realize when we're holding meaning which is no longer useful, and to try and change that. And so meditation is also very much about doing that. That our meditation commentaries, for example, many of them try and infuse us with a sense of self-worth and self-respect, self-esteem. Because one of the things which is, I feel, probably internationally lacking is a sense of finding meaning for ourselves, where we have value for ourselves. And if I don't have value for myself, what will I do? If I don't have value for myself, I will put that meaning out into my environment, right? I will find in my environment confirmation that I don't have value and meaning. I will look for it. Yeah, I will seek to confirm my reality. And we're going to come into a few slides I find really interesting that talk about this. If it's okay, I'll just come back to that story in a sec, because it's another great story, but just time-wise, I want to capture what we were talking about there. So please don't worry, I'll come back to the story of Narcissus. So deeper meaning, in a sense, it's like we're spiritual narcissists. We're deeply in love with our own reality. You know, that is the veil of meaning that we're caught behind. We have a massive preference for our own meaning. So, and some examples of that are, we go to great lengths to prove ourselves right or to justify ourselves. You know, my meaning, the one I'm holding inside and superimposing on the world, is the right meaning. Other people should accept the meaning the way I'm seeing things. And in the same way, we get disturbed sometimes if people disagree with us. You know, how could they have a different meaning from me? They should be seeing things my way. And we prefer the company of people who confirm our story. So if I'm in a conflict with someone else, then I'll talk to someone else. And if they agree with me, I like them. And if they don't agree with me, I dislike them. This is really superficial, actually, but it's very common because they're confirming my story, and I want to confirm my story and hold on to stay stuck in thinking I'm right in my meaning. So we look for evidence and examples to confirm our story, not only company, but we try and justify ourselves by finding other related examples and sticking with that. And just to give a little example of this, two people looking at the same thing, right? They both think they're right and they're both saying a different number. It's very simple, but we do this all the time. And actually in real life, the examples can be much more complicated. You know, the social meaning, the way I feel that this person disrespected me or this person did this thing, it can be very complicated. But basically, it comes down to this principle that the way where I'm standing and the meaning I'm projecting are my own. And I need to understand that other people are valid in the way they're looking at things. Now, this is the bit that we really were just mentioned earlier. It's called confirmation bias, and it's completely validated and proven in psychological research. So confirmation bias is we actively search our environment to confirm our existing beliefs and experiences. So I don't neutrally assess my external environment. I actively scan it and screen it to support my own beliefs, my reality, my meaning. The rubbish I'm full of, I will look for that rubbish in the world around me. So if I have rubbish ideas about myself, that I feel that Dan is really worthless, he's a useless person. If when I was 6 years old, my teacher said to me, "Boy, you're a stupid kid," and it just went in my heart, and from 6 years old, I've believed that I'm stupid. From that age as well, I will look for examples to confirm that I'm stupid. It's not about reality. It's just about it went inside. And then I started to try and confirm that. And in psychology, they've proven this to such an extent that even if we're presented with contradictory evidence, so even if the evidence says you're not stupid, we will not change our belief. We won't change it. It's amazing, right? We're not rational, logical, even-minded scientific creatures. We are emotional. We have the things that we carry inside, and it's hard to sometimes get them out. And we can even damage and hurt ourselves, but we still won't let go of trying to confirm our own belief, even if we ourselves are suffering through that. Amazing, right? And this is well proven. And I don't know if you want to overlay that across a contemporary political context, look at social media, Donald Trump and the American elections, right? People are completely committed to their sense of meaning, and it doesn't matter what someone does, people will not change their view. They will not change who they support. Even if that person kills people, does anything, they don't care. They won't change. Now, that's the sort of negative side. There is a positive side as well, which is that if you have good things inside you, you will actually scan your environment and look for support of those good things. If you feel happy, then you will look for the things in your environment that make you feel happy, and you'll seek to justify and confirm your happiness. If you love people, you will look through your environment to justify and confirm all the reasons why you love people. So really, it's a very useful thing. It's more of a problem actually when we're full of it in the sense of rubbish. But if you get full of good things, if you use your meditation practice to fill yourself with spiritual treasures and spiritual love and divine virtues, then it's a fantastic thing, because that will be your reality, and you'll start to look for that and confirm it and validate your own happiness. So outlook or perception is based on what we have assimilated as truth into our minds and hearts throughout our lives. Outlook or perception is based on what we have assimilated as truth into our minds and hearts throughout our lives. Our beliefs, attitudes, self-esteem, our way of relating to others, they're all the things that we've taken inside during our life. Now, I did want to jump back to the story of Narcissus, because that's a lovely Greek myth. If any of you have studied Greek mythology, you will know this story. The story is of a character called Narcissus and another person called Echo. And in this story, Narcissus was so in love with his own beauty that he rejected anyone who fell in love with him. And in this story, a character called Echo fell in love with Narcissus. But Nemesis, the god of retribution, intervened, and the next day Narcissus got so attracted to his own reflection in a pool that he couldn't leave that pool. So because of seeing Narcissus so cruelly reject so many women, this is why Nemesis, the god of retribution, intervened. And Narcissus got stuck looking in water and just appreciating and loving his own beauty. And I like this story because really this is how we are, unfortunately, in terms of the meaning that we create. We are in love with our own meaning. We are stuck on it. We are obsessed about validating our own story. And really, I feel the most healthy thing is that we get repeatedly challenged by other people and have conflicts, because conflict is always about someone's different meaning coming across my meaning, and me learning to let go and step back from my addiction to my own story. Otherwise, this is what we end up like. that's a picture of a narcissist and his Instagram account. So instead of looking into his own reflection, he's looking into his Instagram account. And it's sort of a parody on modern society, right? That this 2,000-year-old Greek myth is still holding true today, because in some ways people could see that social media can become a trap for people, where they just get addicted to looking at themselves and appreciating their own beauty and not necessarily connecting to or realizing the feelings of other people around them. So that was the story of Narcissus. I'll just flick back to where we were now. Now, in terms of time, I think it's time for questions and answers. So Sister Monica, this was the main inputs. So please do, if there are questions, I'm very happy to share with people. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Thank you so much, Brother Dan, for this wonderful explanation of what we are full of it, how we are full of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it all lies upon our inner beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Our main motto or our main take-home message is, yes, simple living and high thinking. We have to accept each and everything. We have to deprogram ourselves before we want to program ourselves through spirituality, through meditation. Yes. So our audience are having lots and lots of questions. I welcome Dr. Aishwarya to kindly go through the question and answer session for
Good
this.
and good morning, everyone. So, the first question is, if each one of us has a different perspective, viewing rather experiencing the world, then is it correct to say that nothing is right or wrong in this world? It's just someone's perspective and past experiences from which we are looking into.
This is a really beautiful question, Dr. Ishwari. If there was no God, that would be true. But I think there is also a sense of ultimate, and I think in India people are quite familiar with karma as well. And so understanding to be
just 1 second, Danny. Can Ashwina, can you turn off your mic just briefly, because it's interfering with the sound?
Yeah, it's giving some.
Yeah, switch. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So yeah, we do as human beings just have lots and lots of cultural meaning, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a deeper meaning, which is an unconditioned truth. And in many ways, the practice of meditation is entirely devoted to understanding what it means to purify consciousness and really just experience myself before I got conditioned meaning. What was I, the soul, before my parents started to put input onto me, before my school started to put input onto me, before my friends, peers, elders in society started to fill meaning into me. If I can peel back the layers, then I reveal my inherent truth, actually. And really, for me, that's the thing I think I love most about meditation, is I want to get closer to that truth. Well, now you're on mute, Dr. Ishwarya.
So the next question is how to respect someone's perspective and how to stop people from judging others.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. So I think this helps us, at least it helps me be more respectful of other people's perspectives. because I understand that I carry a valid perspective, but I don't have a right to impose myself over someone else's perspective either. I also need to respect their ideas, their views, and we can also try and understand where each other is coming from. Oh, I was seeing it like this. I didn't understand the way you thought about it. Oh, okay, so that's why that was meaningful for you. So there's a whole conversation which can happen, which allows for greater understanding. And that conversation is much more meaningful than just one which is based on a fixed external position. You know, in law, when people negotiate, if people have a fixed position, you can't get anywhere. You know, it is like this, and this is what needs to happen. You must do this. It's like a dead end. But when you have this understanding of how we actually all carry meaning inside, there's flexibility. Okay, this could be coming from the fact that, you know, I was raised this way, or this is how I see things. This is my meaning. So I'm not as committed to my position, and I can actually respect other people. And then what was the other part of the question? Sorry, there was a second part.
It was how to stop people from judging others.
Well, all we can work on actually is trying to stop ourselves from judging others. Yeah, it would be great if we could stop other people from passing judgment on other people, but one of the deep lessons of this outlook is that actually I only have control on the meaning that I program into myself. I can't control the way other people are programmed. So if they're programmed to pass judgment, you know, what power do I have to stop that? Actually, none. But I do have the power to set a good example, to try and give feedback if there's a space for kind of mature feedback. But I can't stop them passing judgment, unfortunately. I would like to share one thing about judgment, though. Judgment itself isn't inherently bad. You know, sometimes people feel like I shouldn't be judgmental. Actually, because of meditation, one of my practices is to be really judgmental, and I'm trying to become the most judgmental person in the world. But I want to judge people as a peaceful soul, as a loving being. I want to fix it so strongly in my consciousness that they're good, that even if they think they're bad, I will disagree with them strongly and say, no, you're a good person. You're a peaceful soul. You know, you have innocence at your heart. You have love at your heart. You also want happiness. So I want to judge people, but I'm judging them based on my good values and things which will uplift them, as opposed to judgment doesn't have to be negative, right? That's our assumption because we carry negativity inside, but we can actually positively judge people, and that's something uplifting. Om Shanti.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, how can we learn to view the world with a broader mindset and not based on our past experiences? How do we learn to understand others' experiences better than not misunderstanding or overlooking?
I feel the answer or key for this question is going to be an individual's meditation practice. There may be other things which people do in society, but you know, I'm carrying for me, I use meditation for this. That's the thing that allows me to, you know, be more humble and change my perspective and be reflective and check myself. And really, if people do meditate, you know, immediately meditation, rather than our eyes always being focused outside and stuck in that external meaning, the eyes go inside, right? I'm looking at myself, checking my own thoughts, checking how I feel, my attitudes, how I interacted. You know, did I do something with a clean heart? Did I have an ulterior motive? Was I motivated by my own selfishness? Was I really doing that for the right reasons? And all of those things come through our meditation practice.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, how do we prevent ourselves from being pessimistic about the future based on the unfortunate or bad experiences we have come across?
That's a very deep and good question, Dr. Ishwarya, because it's very true that if I've had experiences, I've been hurt, or I had my hopes let down, then that will become meaning that I carry inside. I trusted someone and they broke my trust, so therefore do I never trust people again? So I need to find ways to, a little bit like Dr. Monica was saying, to reprogram my programming, because we've all been programmed actually, but some of the programming isn't good. And sometimes we're not even conscious of the programming because we may not have even looked inside to face it, or we may not even be comfortable to go inside. It's quite common in Australia that people can't sit still with themselves. They have so much going on inside that even to sit and meditate, they're not comfortable. They feel it's a waste of time. I can't do this. Actually, it's more like it's the thing they need most, but because they're so uncomfortable with who they are that they can't even sit and listen to their own thoughts. But that is the starting point. And so no matter how uncomfortable it is, I feel that's the critical first step that people need to take, is to start to spend time with themselves. If I want to have a relationship with someone, say Dr. Ishwarya, if I want to be your friend, but will we ever be friends if I never spend time with you? Not possible, right? You'll be like, I don't know that guy. Who is he? It's like, won't even spend time. So what about my relationship with myself? If I never spend any time being with myself, there's no relationship. Zero. So that's people's starting point. And then the pessimism, the other things, whatever we've recorded, we can reprogram. We can change our meaning.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, we are often unable to relate to another person's perspective based on our past experiences, which leads to problems in our relationships. How to learn to understand other people's better and to stop our own story effect, how we see the real world.
That's great. That question is very much connected to the topic. Hopefully the person who asked the question may feel that it's already been answered through the content that's been shared, because I feel that the first basis for understanding someone else's perspective is once we really accept and realize that each of us just carries a meaning and a perspective which is our own, rather than thinking, our default thinking is that my perspective is right, my perspective is better, people should see things my way. This is basically what we call ego in Raj Yoga, in the Brahmakumaris. All of those statements are just human ego. And human ego is the narcissist, the person who's selfish or in love with their own perspective. So to understand someone else's perspective, I need to come out of my narcissism. I need to put my ego down, and then I can meet someone else and really understand them. Otherwise, it's like just two egos meeting, right? And then actually the nature of ego is selfish. And so you don't actually meet someone through selfishness. People will even fall in love with someone just because they think they're like them. And so people often end up in, superficial relationships that break up very quickly because the basis of that relationship was actually just their ego. I love David because David is like me. But what's the use in only wanting to love someone because they're like me? it's really sorry, but it's a superficial relationship, right? I need to understand who he is as a person in his own right. Then I can understand if there's even a relationship or a friendship or connection, not just be stuck in my own meaning.
Thank you so much, sir.
So we are over with the second part of this session. Now, entering into the third part, our own Pied Piper of Hamelin, the magical musician, Brother David, all the way from Gyan Sarovar,
Thank you.
will be playing a beautiful music, and along with that, the live commentary with magical Brother Den.
So to start with, I become aware of my own breathing. So my attention is just to watch my breath come in and go out. Start to bring in deeper and deeper breaths. And I also add the visualization. I breathe in. It's like I'm breathing in light energy. And when I breathe out, I visualize that I'm breathing out anything old, if there's anything troubling me, as if I'm just blowing that out when I exhale. Light and positivity very deeply. Go blowing out any stress, anything that's troubling me, exhaling that out. Now I'm going to use the power of my thoughts to completely relax the whole physical body. My mind is so powerful that it's like I can switch off in the body and just become aware of the conscious being inside. Down to the tips of my toes, of my feet and my toes. Visualize as if I turn off a switch. Turn off the energy in my feet and they become very light and weightless. My lower legs. I feel the switch. They become soft and light. I let them go. The upper legs, I turn them off. I turn off the switch to the pelvis, the lower back. And I feel them sink down and relax. I let them go. I'm aware of the stomach. So much energy in the stomach, but I'm just turning it off. Letting go of everything. And I bring my hands elbows, upper arms, I just completely let them go. My whole body is becoming soft, weightless. I bring my attention to the chest and the shoulders. Again, so much energy there, but I feel the shoulders start to drop down. I let go of the shoulders, completely relax the body. All the tension drains out. I become aware of the neck, the back of the head. I turn it off, I let it go. Then I bring my attention my eyes and forehead, and I turn it all off. My whole face becomes soft. Let it go. In this relaxed state, I can use the power of my mind to find the inner peace of I, the living being, the soul. Looking at a tiny star of light energy. The tiny star is made of pure peace. As if that star is just shining the light of peace in my mind's eye. I keep visualizing and seeing that tiny star of peace. My whole attention the more I look at that star with my mind's eye, I feel as if peace into my own inner being, into my own consciousness. The more I'm focusing on that energy of peace and visualizing that peace is becoming part of me. I start to feel I am peace. Peace is a part of me. The more I can stabilize my mind on this quality of peace, then the more I can experience it. Visualizing this tiny star of peaceful light energy. Om Shanti. I bring my attention back to my surrounds, back to Vu, and feel the peace inside me. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, and thank you, Brother David and Brother Dan, for such a wonderful experience. Yes, this was a full insight of our values, virtues, of our qualities, of each and everything. We received all the powers of God in few seconds. All thanks to both of you. Yes, on behalf of entire Hitkani Dental College and Hospital, Hitkani Sabha, Jabalpur Hospital, Indian Medical Association, Jabalpur Branch, Indian Dental Association, Jabalpur Branch, Medical Wing, Mount Abu, Medical Wing Security, Jabalpur, Security Wing, Mount Abu in Jabalpur. I, Dr. Monica Khatri, Associate Professor, thank you on this beautiful occasion of We Are Full of It. Yes, now it's time for official end note. I welcome Dr. Aishwarya to kindly present vote of thanks to our beautiful guest speaker and our musician. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. It's my absolute privilege that I've been asked to propose a vote of thanks today. Aishwarya Sonkar, on behalf of everyone present here, and fraternity, would like to extend my heart full of gratitude to our guest speakers, B.K. Vinodini ma'am, for her wise words, B.K. David sir, for his music, and an absolute pleasure always. And sir, I am a president, Dr. Pawan Sthapak, and chairperson, Dr. Deepak Sahu sir. IDA President Dr. Ashish Arora, our co-chairperson Dr. Vinod Asrani Sir, Hitkani Sabha, our director Dr. Rajesh Dhiravani, Dean Dr. Rohit Mishra Sir, BK Dr. Agrawal Sir, BK Sister Bhavna, BK Banarsi Lal Sir, Medical Wing Brahmakumaris, Mount Abu and Jabalpur branches, Security Wing Moni Abu and Jabalpur branches. I would also like to thank our moderators, Dr. B.K. Shyamji Rawat, sir, Dr. Neetu Khatri ma'am, Dr. Reena Tomar ma'am, B.K. Manisha ma'am, B.K. Poonam Khatri ma'am, Dr. Vedant Sarkar sir, and Dr. Monica ma'am for starting and supporting this initiative. I would also like to thank all my batchmates, seniors, juniors for actively participating and making this session a success. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you, Brother Den, and thank you, Brother David, for this
Thank you.
wonderful session. Thank you so much. And welcome to Sanskar Dhani whenever possible in this drama.
Thank you,
Thank
Jenny.
Dr. Aishwarya.
Thank you, Dr.
Apologies for all the
Monica
mistakes.
and
No.
Ashwarya. Thank
Apologies
you.
for all the mistakes.
No problem. See you.
Om Shanti.
Om